ValveTime.net.
Hi, and welcome to a ValveTime review. Today we'll be looking at Thinking with Time Machine, a free Portal 2 modification released onto Steam on April 18, 2014, after being greenlit in March 2014. Before we begin, we should say the mod includes some pretty major spoilers regarding the ending of Portal 2, so stay away from both this review and the mod if you have yet to play Portal 2 all the way through. Developed by community member Striderman and several others, the mod looks to introduce several new time-based mechanics alongside the standard portal gun, but is it too much to handle? Let's find out. Thinking with Time Machine opens during the final moments of Portal 2, as GLaDOS is finally kicking Shell out of the Aperture Science facility, or so we thought. After an unexpected and somewhat confusing twist, you once again find yourself back within a variety of new test chambers within the facility, only this time holding a new PDA with the ability to record and play back a series of actions as a means of solving test chambers. This PDA time machine stands as the main crux of the whole experience, allowing you to record and play back a copy of yourself to repeat actions and complex sequences in an effort to reach the goal. These sequences vary greatly, with some requiring you to use your past twin as a stepping stone to climb upwards, passing cubes to yourself through hazardous environments, or activating switches to raise platforms and open doors. Basically, it's co-op gameplay without another player. Unfortunately, a pair of unhelpful tutorial levels do little to introduce the concept in an easily understood format, effectively leaving the player to work out how the three entirely new, oddly placed keyboard buttons function. For the early levels, we ended up relying mostly on trial and error until we accidentally figured out which buttons correspond with which command and in what order. It's a shame on-screen notifications weren't used to better introduce the various commands in a simple format, as some nicely animated videos set up in the first few chambers also do little to help. That said, for the most part at least, the mechanic works well. Aside from a few questionable chambers midway through, the majority of the levels gradually test your ability to formulate and execute increasingly difficult and complex tasks in a way which is fun and creative. However, the quality of level design does seem to fluctuate heavily from one chamber to the next, with one test clearly focused on careful timing and coordinated precision, while the next features unclear objectives by presenting too many different mechanics at the same time rather than in a logical and controlled order. Other questionable design decisions can also introduce unnecessary tedium and confusion, such as placing buttons or switches on the ceiling rather than on the floor only to show off a neat, albeit unintuitive, anti-gravity system or an awkward, unnecessary shoulder climbing sequence. We also came across one or two game-breaking exploits which trapped us in locked rooms with no means of escape, forcing us to reload previous autosaves just to continue playing. Thankfully, these poor design decisions didn't totally ruin our experience, and several longer, more complex test chambers later in the game definitely helped introduce some much-needed variety. We think it's no coincidence that the most enjoyable chambers, including the ones we just mentioned, are those which embrace both the new recording mechanic and those of the portal gun, which, unfortunately, isn't really done enough throughout the game. These later chambers also seem to require less repetitive retrying, something which really plagued tests in the early and middle portions of the game. Due to the way the game handles Shell's recording, playbacks can occasionally appear imprecise, causing what were once accurate solutions to puzzles becoming a total nuisance through no fault of your own. Problems like this only serve to pad the game's length by forcing you to unnecessarily repeat actions, effectively ruining your enjoyment of an otherwise straightforward test. As we already mentioned, the mod takes place seconds after the conclusion of Portal 2, something which immediately makes it seem rather anticlimactic and unnecessary. This is only exaggerated toward the end of the relatively short hour-long experience. Like many other mods, narrative definitely takes a backseat to the gameplay, as Thinking with Time Machines features little more than 2 or 3 major story-driven sequences throughout the entire game. The placement and execution of these narrative sequences can feel pretty random, seemingly cropping up out of nowhere with little explanation or impact on the experience, even if it is nice to throw in a few what-ifs into the crazy world of Aperture Science. One such random event involved a music-playing gramophone and having the Borealis, yes, the boat, crash bow first through the walls of a test chamber with zero explanation or context. The event's surprising nature, coupled with some pretty deafening sound balancing, only really managed to scare the pants off Nick before causing a good few minutes worth of confusion and bewilderment. Even though we played the mod several days before the script was written, we're still trying to figure out how and why the Borealis was introduced, potentially making the mod's narrative a bigger conversation piece than that of BioShock Infinite's ending. Jokes aside, the narrative generally progresses little and ends extremely abruptly, so it's probably best to just not pay too much attention to it, as much as we'd honestly like to. This new area of the facility more closely resembles the computer simulation from Tron than the Aperture Science we all know and love. While it is interesting to have a totally new, distinct visual style, the brightly lit panels and super shiny flooring really did end up getting in the way while making the traditional white portable surfaces harder to find amongst a wave of overbearing bloom and exposure. While the visual presentation is relatively consistent throughout, we did notice a rather large number of rather obvious problems, including clashing environmental themes, clipping props, massively overscaled textures, clunky animation, and a missing skybox on one level in particular. Speaking of the skybox, unlike Portal 2, which surrounds its test chambers with unique industrial backdrops, Thinking with Time Machine appears to use a rather repetitive and generic 3D skybox which can, more often than not, look comically oversized due to the way Source Games upscale skyboxes for games such as Team Fortress 2 and Half-Life 2. As we briefly noted earlier, one of the mod's major issues involves the use of sound, which is poorly balanced on occasion, effectively deafening headphone users at moments such as these. While the sound balancing issues are only really a problem for one or two minor sequences, the rest of the experience is unfortunately damaged by some extremely repetitive background noise which fills nearly every test chamber. With almost no dialogue or soundtrack to break up the background noise, the frequent, regularly unbroken sound of machinery becomes a real pain, occasionally making it difficult to concentrate or focus your attention on anything else. Like some of the other members of the community, we were also plagued with a few unusual crashes to desktop. Thankfully, the game's frame rate does remain largely consistent throughout. On the whole though, we had fun with Thinking with Time Machine. The recording mechanic is fun and highly inventive, and we think the mod suitably explored the possibilities within the hour of playtime. As you have probably noticed over the course of this review, we do feel as if the mod was heavily let down by a variety of problems both big and small, most of which could have been resolved with just a little more bug testing. We definitely think a few more quality passes were required to get the game to a point where we could call it polished. Hopefully, most of the smaller problems we mentioned can be resolved with future patches. It's just a shame about some of the fundamental level design issues we mentioned earlier, which are likely pretty hard to fix at this stage. Regardless, the mod is worth checking out if you want to see how the portal mechanic could potentially be expanded on, or if you're looking to burn an hour or so without having to get your wallet out. And there you have it. Those are our thoughts on Thinking with Time Machine. A link to the mod's Steam store page has been provided in the video description if you're looking to check it out for yourself. It is available for free so long as you have Portal 2 purchased and installed, as it requires the main game to be fully installed before you can play. After you've had a chance to play, be sure to let us know what you think of the mod in the comments below. As always, don't forget to subscribe and to follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks for watching and bye for now.